really toward the beginning of the game that just kept it very easy. A lot of things that I've talked about on your show and that I've made mention of that people really view as making light, that as if I just don't like the kid, with I want them all to be successful. It's Shepard Purdy has a funky throwing motion, as well as with the bad offensive line, it makes it very difficult for them to be able to even call certain plays. So you saw them really be able to take away the run, even though FSU did try to establish it. They did try to do different things, like they ran Wildcat with Corbin and Webb, even bringing in man, I forgot the other running back's name. It's very fat. It'll come to me, but
Corbin, yeah. Okay.
we haven't even seen, like, Toa Foley wasn't in there, so it's a kid we haven't seen. But they tried to run the Wildcat with Corbin. And that kind of looked very gimmicky. Purdy, I guess, Tate and Purdy, to be honest with you, really look roughly the same, except for Tate has a tendency to throw an interception a little bit more, and his arm, believe it or not, is probably just as raggedy as Purdy's is. But the first half really showed the lack of faith in the arm, where you saw all the passes were under 10 yards with the release points. And there was some drops, and I know a lot of people want to say that, but there were a lot of high balls on a screen, which is terrifying. I know a lot of fans have never had to catch a screen before, but you don't want a screen when you're running full speed in one direction to go high when there's a defender coming full speed at you, because there's a lot of things you got to pay attention to. So that was really the offense. Then you saw I think Darius Washington go down early, so now you have a young offensive line hit with even more bad things, and that's just basically your Florida State's offense. It's a lot of stalling out. Oh, and the analytics played again. A lot of going forward on fourth down, putting your defense in some bad situations. One of which, the defense, it was 7-0. The defense had literally just stopped. Had a big fourth and one stuff on North Carolina State, and Florida State went 4 and out, and kind of put them right back in the same position, and then they ended up scoring a touchdown, which is very disheartening when you think about it. But all in all, they didn't quit. I mean, I guess I could do all the moral victory stuff. Defense had some times when they show flashes, but considering they don't have Marvin Wilson, considering Hamza Nazardine really came in, didn't show much, but like, what do you expect? The guy who's been hurt all year and is just now coming back, hasn't played football in over a year. No spring, no workouts, really, no nothing. But Cooper did pretty decent at times. They all show flashes, but there's still some things that leave a little bit to be desired. Just still a little bit to be desired. But I can't sit here, and as hard as I've been on them on your show and on others, I cannot sit and say that there wasn't any improvement. Because no matter what, the garbage time, they've quit before. They've got a lot of guys that are out. They do have about dang near 3/4 of the team is freshmen and sophomores. So this could be one of those things that could be a step in the right direction. But it's hard to really, like you said, it's hard to. I could talk about the 20, I believe it was 24 points or something like that. Maybe it was 23, whatever it was. But the reality is, a lot of the only 9 came in real time.
So, James, going back to the quarterbacks and evaluating quarterbacks. So this is what I don't understand, is that if it's obvious that a quarterback, and I will say this about Jordan Travis, and I could select other quarterbacks across the country where just watching them throw the ball, their lack of being able to put velocity on it, throw certain routes, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I can understand if there's a misevaluation on a certain player at quarterback when they come into a program because they can't grasp the playbook, they can't read a defense, they can't do those sorts of things. But in terms of raw talent, throwing ability, that's where I don't understand a misevaluation. And when you see Jordan Travis, I won't even get into the other two quarterbacks because I saw them play a little bit, but I didn't see enough to really get much, except for none of them have outstanding throwing arms. But I did see the other two kids play tonight. I shouldn't call them kids, I guess. The young men play. Rodemaker and Purdy play tonight. I didn't see. But Jordan Travis obviously has like a hitch in his throw, and he just pushes it. Like, how is that not seen when they're evaluated?
Well, I mean, that a lot of that has to do with why Jordan Travis probably wasn't recruited to Florida State in the first place. With Jimbo Fisher, he was at Louisville first. Taggart brought him in as a guy who was a transfer when he didn't bring any quarterbacks in. He was more so supposed to be a depth guy as he tried to bring in his guys. So the guy who really has the most natural quarterback motion, the problem is he's a mental midget and he's already in the transfer portal, and that's James Blackman. I believe a confident James Blackman beats NC State again because of some of the throws that he can make. And I think Jordan Travis's ability really more so is how really dynamic he is with his legs. He is explosive. He makes you defend him honestly. You can't just drop back. Now, what I will say is Purdy did show how he's a little bit better of an athlete this week. I will give him that. Purdy I believe he did a pretty decent job there, especially toward the end of the game when they dropped back. Nothing was there. He really found the space and beat him with his leg.
Yep.
But they all have this funky throwing motion, and that's part of the reason why a lot of people think that quarterbacks are recruited based upon their high school stats, and that's a portion of it. What happens is there's not a college coach in the nation at this point that hasn't seen all their quarterbacks throw live. So you have to go to the school and see some things that you like. So I go back to this, and a lot of people always say, James, you're just mad that they didn't recruit Jeff Sims. And it's not about Jeff Sims and his high school stats. If you know anything about his situation coming out of high school, he doesn't really have a great offensive mind as a coach. Now, what he does have, though, is a fluid throwing motion that you'll find most successful quarterbacks have. Now, the key is getting him to throw it to your team and not the other team. What happens when you have that kind of hitchy shot put motion, on air, you may be able to make every throw. But what happens is when you drop back and there's live bullets coming at you, if that motion isn't fluid, you really can't make those throws, and it becomes a lot harder. And especially when you're throwing the out routes, the ones where you see guys have to have that zip on it, it gets a lot of loft, and that's how you get those interceptions. So, and when you're scrambling, which is ironic, because none of our guys do it that well because none of them have a powerful arm. When you're on the run and you're trying to throw it, you already lose accuracy. But when you don't have a good arm, it really just makes it even worse. But I wish I saw a game offensively where it just looked like we put all the pieces together. It looked like we had a competent game plan. It really just looks like we're running an assortment or a collection of plays and hoping that, and really flinging spaghetti at a wall and hoping something sticks. And I saw somebody put, when they went for it on fourth down, they're like, well, are you trying to win the game or are you trying to play for a close loss? And no, I'm trying to put these kids in a situation where they can play competent football for the first time in 3 to 4 years. And going for it on 4th and 1 on your own 31-yard line, there's no analytics, or I mean, I to be honest with you, I don't really give a damn about analytics. Analytics never lined up and breathed and played on the field. It's just not a really good position to put your defense in, especially if your defense isn't world beaters. Like you've got to protect them at a certain. If you're the OC, especially if you're the head coach and you're the OC, you got to protect all your children. Your defensive guys are your children as well. You got to put them in good positions to be successful.
And that's one of the reasons I don't have an issue with running up a score on either side, as long as you've got backups in, because those kids want to play. They don't get to play most of the time. And so if a team's up 50-10 and they bring their backups in and they throw the ball around, well, that backup quarterback or that third string quarterback, he needs work The backup offensive linemen need work against real competition. So I got no issue with that. Back to the quarterback situation. One other question about quarterback selection is when you run down the attributes of a Jordan Travis and say it's more running than throwing, and that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were sitting here in 1995 or even 15 years ago, I could understand that to a certain extent. But is that really the skill set that you want when you're trying to achieve the goals that a Florida State should be trying to achieve?
No, it's not. And I think that's why he wasn't. Like, people ask because we get so not fooled, because I'm trying to use words that don't sound as negative. I don't really know if I'm accomplishing that goal, but like, he won and it was great, but it's not what you think. Like, you won a game where I believe he was 8 for 19 passing, but he did a lot with his legs. Like, he was a running back that threw the ball. And I think Jordan Travis needs to be on the field. I just think this is where having a better quarterback competition, having a coach that, yes, you want to find your perfect quarterback, right? But offensive gurus can take whatever their philosophy and their formula is and mold it to what they have. If you have to wait for the personnel to be perfect for you, you're probably gonna get fired. I mean, that's just the truth. So, like, you gotta, like, again, and that's what makes guys like Dan Mullen so admirable, because he's taking a Felipe Franks, who is different from a Kyle Trask, who are different from the quarterbacks who he really likes, your Dak Prescott's, your Tim Tebow's, or like, and he's got that kid in Anthony Richardson probably who would develop, but he's winning, and he's got a guy who literally never started a game in high school in the Heisman competition. So that's, if I'm Norvell, and I'll give Norvell the benefit that Trask is year 2 in the system. So without having the spring, there's some things that he already knew that they could mold with. But Mike Norvell, really, this is what you have. You've got Chubba Purdy, Jordan Travis, hopefully, unless he gets the portal, Tate Rodemaker, and hopefully Luke Altwell, which I know guys like, my guy Logan, and those guys really believe that, he's going to stick. But at a certain point, he's a competitor. And that don't look good. Like, I mean, I know I would want to go somewhere and have a resurgence, but like, I got to see who else coming in there to resurge with me. Ain't no lineman coming in there to resurge with me, and I need some more wide receivers as well. So, but it's I guess he's got to find his pieces. But if I were him, if it were me and I would consider the offensive guru, I would tailor my offense to what I got. Because the quote Urban Meyer, once you sign that contract, them your kids.
And James, believe me, I say all that being the guy that sits here just about every night defending quarterbacks across the country, because I think too many of us watch Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson play on Sunday. And then we also see Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and think there's like 100 of those out there. And there's not. So there's a lot of very capable quarterbacks out there that are really good, but they make mistakes every game, and that's okay because all the other players make mistakes too. So I'm certainly not looking for the perfect quarterback, and think that generally as fans, the standard for quarterback play is just elevated to be. And if you don't have the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields guy, then you're ripping on your quarterback typically. A lot of these fan bases, and I think that's just way too high of a bar to expect these guys to play to.
Well, at the basics, you have to understand rhythm and release. So you got your 3-step, you got your 5-step. Typically, because a lot of these guys are in the gun, they're really just going 3 and 5. Nobody's doing like a 7-step out of the I formation anymore like that. Even with the pistol, they're far enough back to where they don't need to do that. But when you're doing a 3-step drop, at the end of that drop, in theory, the ball is supposed to get out of your hands. That's a quick game. And if it doesn't, if you step up, boom, it should be boom. The minute you climb, it's thrown and you're on your third read. Same thing with the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you don't know where to go with the ball at that point, then you're climbing, and the ball should be being chucked deep. See, if you really get into those rhythms and you're throwing the ball on time, it should be very difficult for the defensive line to get to you. So it protects your offensive line. Now, the flip side of that is if your offensive line is better, it helps you go through all of your progressions as well. So it's a combination between at least your quarterback. I got made a joke about Rodemaker, whatever his name is. He made the right read. His arm just two hopped it. So at least I'm like the progress is he threw it in the general vicinity of the guy who was open. He just didn't have the arm strength to throw it to the guy that was open, which is very weird in general. Like I guess to one of your real point, you haven't said it, but like to what I say, which is kind of similar point, with all the quarterbacks that are available in the state of Florida, Georgia, whatever you want to call in the Southeast, there's at least one starting quarterback at every school. And there's probably at least 2,000 schools in those schools that are, and let's say 10% is what's considered elite. So what is that? That's like 200. That's at least 200. That's enough for every Division I school to have a quarterback that can throw the ball competently. Like there should be no reason that you have a quarterback that doesn't have the physical attributes of what you need. Now the mental and the character traits that you're looking for are different, but at least to be able to drop back, throw the ball with a spiral in a forward motion, there should be no reason there's not a quarterback on every Division I roster like that. It probably should be 3 or 4.
All right, folks, we'll get to big game. James Coleman on the line, joins us from his car. James, I appreciate you calling in. I got that link out there, and you shot it right back, so I appreciate you jumping on board, breaking down Florida State's latest loss to NC State on the road. James joins us most of the time on, let's see, what do we do now? Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Eastern for Florida State Seminoles Live. James, we'll let you go unless you got anything else you want to throw on top of all this.
Nah, nothing really. I mean, I would say it can't get any worse, but it can.
Yeah, that's been stated a few times by all of us, and it keeps going that way. So I'm sure we'll have another lively discussion coming up here on Wednesday night. Hope you can stop in. Folks, James is available for a live chat with you, live stream, just like we're doing right here. Send $5. We're doing a raffle. Send $5. I'll put up Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. You can reach me just about anywhere there. Or just send me, if you want more information on it, send me an email at MarkRogersTV@gmail. MarkRogersTV@gmail. If you got any questions, James is going to come on the line. I'll come on the line just to set it up operationally. I'll shut up and kick back, and you guys can have a great conversation on Florida State, the NFL, whatever you want to talk about with James. So let's do that. James, appreciate you stopping by, man. Have a good night.